Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. Welcome to Scalp Clinic. So, in today's session, I'm going to go through a video and how we basically do the second session of scalp pigmentation. So let's talk about this video. This is the second session that's being done. And as you can see, I use exactly the same techniques. So the second session, you can see the pigment is slightly darker than the first session. So anybody that knows a full head of hair, your full head of hair does not have equal amounts of colors throughout your head. You know, sometimes your hair is thin, sometimes your hair is thick. So for it to look as natural as possible, your first session would be slightly done with a lighter tone, lighter, shade of black. And your second session would be just a slightly darker tone. So this gives you a nice balance in your head. Your hair looks fuller, looks more natural, because your head, as you know, sometimes it's dark, sometimes it's light, sometimes your hair is thin, sometimes your hair is thick. So you don't want to make it completely even. You want to make it look as natural as possible, and that's the way to do it. Your dots are evenly placed, and you obviously try not to overdo the first session. So you need your obviously glasses on and make sure your dots do not overdo your first dots in your first session, and you do a nice evenly kind of around the fucking hello.
Good afternoon. My name's Safi. I'm calling from Prestige Telecom in regards to your EE mobile. How are you today?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. So guys, as you can see, I'm stretching the skin at the top of the scalp with my other hand. So I'm using my thumb and my forefinger to stretch the skin as much as possible. This is very important because the scalp has got a lot of skin in there, and if you don't stretch it, then what you're going to have is a very uneven surface at the top of your head, and it's going to look very unnatural. So when you stretch it and put the dots in place, when you let go, that's how you've done a great job. And a lot of people forget about stretching the skin. It's very, very important. So now I'm setting up the hairline. As you can see, the front of the hairline and also the side is very important. You take your time and you do things as carefully as possible. Try and make it look as naturally as possible. Don't overdo. Don't put the dots on over your first session dots. Sometimes, like I said, the dots need to be darker. Sometimes the dots need to be darker. It's how a head goes. And obviously the hairline will depend on what the customer wants, whether he wants a sharp looking hairline or whether they want something a lot more uneven and looking more natural. And also you have to obviously match the front of your hairline to the side profile as well, as you can see, and you got to blend it in. You got to blend it in to the side of your head. And this is probably the most difficult part. And as you can see, it is slowly blended into the side of your head. The side of your head is obviously where most of your hair is, and you got to try and blend it in with your existing hair. And as you can see, the side of your head needs to be shaved, so you know exactly where your hair follicles are, and you need to work around those hair follicles. And yeah, guys, so you can see how he's trying to blend it in. I mean, the blending part is probably the most difficult part, and you got to kind of blend it in with your existing hair follicles and with the new follicles on the top of your head. And as you can see how it's been done, and the dots are not overdoing it on on what's already there. You just basically working your way around it as well. So make sure you cover the area, wipe it clean every now and then. You got to wipe it clean because you don't want any blood or sweat or anything. You know, the area needs to be completely dry. And you also need to replace the needle um, every few dozen dots or so. So every 20 or 30, you know, sometimes they last until 50 dots. You got to replace the needle because the needle gets clogged up with skin and blood and things like that. So as you can see, the needle gets swapped out, the area gets wiped clean, and you just got to start again, guys. You know, it's one of those things that you don't rush into it, especially when you're starting out. Make sure you take your time doing the front and the side, and as you can see, once you start wiping things off, the shape comes into play. Some areas look darker than others because that might not be you. That might be existing hair that's already there. So you need to be careful. Obviously, you need to not make it look even darker. So you need to work around what's already there and work your way around, you know, some areas which have got more hair than others. So if there's areas with less hair, you do more work on them. If there's areas with more hair, you do less work on it, and you basically blend it in. You do your dots are more wider. You know, they're not as close, for example. So you can see the head is being stretched, and the areas, you know, are being done, and you can see from the top of the head where there's existing hair already there, the the spaces for dots are lot more wider. So that's how you kind of blend it in. Yeah, you stretch it in, you look at areas which are missing, and you try and fill up the gaps. So you try and do as much as possible, and then after the second session, sometimes the third session is needed, depending on how much work is needed on the head. Sometimes the second session is enough, but there are times when a third session is needed. And when you do the third session, you obviously try and do a little bit darker compared to the first session and the second session. So mainly because, you know, you want to make it look as even as possible. And then and that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you in the next session.